So you may have heard about a game that just came out called 33 Immortals. It was recently released into early access and is currently available on PC through the Epic Game Store and on Xbox and Xbox Game Pass. The game is described as an action roguelike for 33 players. You play as a damned soul that needs to cooperate with other immortals to survive hordes of monsters, defeat dungeons, and fight bosses. Now, the first thing we noticed is how much this game draws inspiration from Dante's Divine Comedy, which we found very interesting. We were also very impressed with the unique hand-drawn 2D art style. The game starts in the Dark Woods, where you will be introduced to the game's NPCs. Beatrice is probably the most important, as she introduces you to feats, which is the way you level up your character. Feats include things like opening chests, completing runs while in a party, and using specific weapons to kill enemies. Each feat will reward you with feat points that increases your rank, as well as stats such as increased health, increased attack damage, and damage reduction. Now, Dante is another NPC that gives you access to perks, which will award you with helpful passives during your runs.
When you enter the Dark Woods, you'll be shown 3 worlds: Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. You only have access to the first 2 worlds, as Paradiso is still in development. Inferno is the first world you enter and has up to 33 players. You can play in a party of 4 or solo, as there's no party matchmaking currently available. When a run starts, you spawn at a random location on the map and are immediately attacked by monsters. Although this game can be played solo, it's really in your best interest to team up with other players while you wait for torture chambers to open. These torture chambers are essentially mini dungeons that require a max of 6 players to work together to kill the hordes inside and then defeat the bosses. All chambers must be cleared before the Ascension battle can take place. At this stage, all players on the field must report to one of 3 zones where they will have to fight a final standoff against the Minions of Darkness. After killing the mobs and defeating the Ascension bosses, you'll be transported to the final room. Anyone who has survived through the Ascension battle, or those whose party members have survived, will be greeted by the final boss. It begins with a small cutscene, where you and the rest of the survivors are introduced to these larger-than-life gatekeepers. These fights will test your skills, knowledge, and most importantly, your teamwork. These fights are literally raid bosses from other games, equipped with tons of different mechanics, adds, and phases. Although I was nervous going in, I quickly became more confident in my party's ability after seeing them move as a unit to dodge arena area wipe mechanics, clear adds, and call out to focus boss damage. The sheer number of players popping their co-op powers, multiple at a time, reminded me of what I love about MMO world bosses and other raid bosses. There's just something special about strangers teaming up to fight insurmountable odds that just excites. We won't go into too much detail on exactly how these fights work, but just know if you make it here, you're in for a real treat.
After completing several runs of Inferno, it appears as though the world itself does not change, but enemy type and placement, as well as loot placement, is randomly generated. Although the world looks really great, and there is variety in each playthrough, we did feel like the runs started feeling a bit repetitive since the map doesn't change. Another critique we had was on the revival mechanics. If you're in a party, you're able to use a shrine to resurrect any fallen party members. However, if you are playing solo, you will not have this option. It would be nice to see the ability to res other members on the map, even if they are not in your party. For a game that requires so much cooperation, this seems crucial. Now, on the topic of parties, it would also be nice to see a larger party size. Seeing as how the torture chambers are for 6 players, it seems like having parties of 6 would make sense. But one of our favorite aspects of the game is the music. It really sets the mood for the game with its haunting orchestral tones.
So once you defeat the boss in Inferno, you'll be given a key that can access Purgatorio. Purgatorio is pretty much the same as Inferno, but it dials up the difficulty. One of the ways it does this is by cutting down the number of players to 22. On the few runs we did, over half the players didn't even make it to the final battle. This was much different than Inferno, where the vast majority made it all the way to the end. We don't want to spoil this boss fight either, but this one was significantly more difficult. This could be due to the lack of players that made it to the end, but the mechanics were also notably more challenging. Okay, so let's talk weapons in 33 Immortals. This game offers 4 unique weapons: the Sword of Justice, the Daggers of Greed, the Staff of Sloth, and the Bow of Hope. Each weapon provides a different playstyle. All styles have a light and heavy attack. Each also has its own secondary ability. For example, the Bow of Hope's basic attack allows you to shoot opponents with up to 6 arrows. Each bow shot can also be held down and charged for a more powerful one. Once you've shot, you can recall those arrows back into your quiver. As the arrows are recalled, any enemy in the path can be hit by those arrows. This ability adds a level of depth to the initial basic combat that was a welcome surprise. The Sword of Justice is more akin to a traditional tank class. It allows for slower, more methodical close combat, where the wielder can parry most basic attacks in the game. The Daggers of Greed are fast and ferocious, mostly akin to a rogue or assassin type class. Their attacks can stun. The Dagger's leap can also be used offensively or defensively. The Staff of Sloth is used as more of a support class, but the fact that it has a built-in slow and weakening effect makes it extremely helpful on the battlefield. Let's talk co-op powers. Once more, what makes 33 Immortals combat stand out to others in the genre are what the team has dubbed co-op powers. These are super powerful abilities that must be charged up, then triggered by multiple players to activate. These can turn the tide of a run if you use them well, and often. These abilities have to be triggered by multiple players, so you better be paying attention to the symbols on the ground to know when someone's attempting to activate one. Each class can grant a unique co-op power once it's charged up. The Sword of Justice will grant an energy shield to those that assist with its activation. The Daggers of Greed will grant a stacking damage buff depending upon how many bones the wielder picks up once it's activated. The Staff of Sloth will send out a huge slow and weakening field that debuffs enemies. And finally, the Bow of Hope will send out a wide array of arrows that will deal a significant amount of damage to any enemy caught in its path.
The devs have released a 2025 roadmap, so it seems like the game will be in early access through the rest of the year. The spring update includes bug and stability fixes, accessibility options, control rebinding, and graphic settings. Now, I'm personally especially happy to see that control rebinding is on the horizon, as I was not very enthused about the current controls. Summer is going to bring private sessions, decorations, additional trainings, the ability to descend after ascension, new feats, and an ordeal system. And finally, the fall will bring us the new world Paradiso, which will have 11 players. Overall, this game has a lot of potential, and we are excited to see what the game will look like upon full release. If you have given 33 Immortals a try, let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.